Rick Owens is the king of crop. Like, in the Victorian era, where it would be so scandalous if a young lady saw some strapping young lads walking down the street and she pulls up her long skirt to reveal her ankles and everyone's like, oh my goodness, oh, so scandalous, so sensual. That is what Rick Owens is always going for. He wants to see your ankies. So why is Rick Owens so obsessed with these cropped styles? Why does he go to them season after season looking to show a little calf, a little ankle at the very least? We're in an era right now where pretty much all pants are crazy stacked. They're extra long. You get this bagging down at your sneakers, at your shoes. It bunches up down there. Rick Owens says, no, I'm not dealing with any of that. We're getting some bare leg up in here. And I've got two examples of those pieces to look at today. Two very different examples that I think will give us the full breadth of Rick Owens' cropped pants. So first of all, we have a knit pair of cropped joggers. I'm really excited for these, to check these out. They're really cool knit style. But then we also have, I believe, a 2010 pair of cropped dress pants that are actually mostly made of hemp. So two very different pieces, but both playing with the famous Rick Owens cropped leg style. So we're going to check out the details of these pieces. We'll also try them on, see how they feel, how they fit, build some looks around them. So stay tuned, because we're going to be seeing some leg in this episode. I know, it's exciting. It's really exciting stuff. Let's get into it. All right, here they are. Super cool, right? Similar but different. All right, so we've got the joggers and also the dress pants. Let's start with, I'd say, the simpler of the two, which are these kind of shorts. I don't know, they're kind of in between, right? But knit. I love these. Let's take a closer look. So these are a very simple silhouette, but in that classic Rick Owens style that is instantly recognizable. But even within this, he's doing some unique things that set them apart from any other pair of Rick Owens shorts or joggers. Through this video, I really want to understand why Rick Owens keeps going to the same styles and silhouettes and cuts over and over again for years, from his earliest collections to his most recent, as we're seeing with the pieces in this video and these cropped cuts. And I think the best way to do that is to hear it in Rick's own words. So I've collected some various quotes that I think speak to this and speak to his state of mind and the way he designs things. So here's the first quote from Rick for this video. "If you had a good idea once, why should it disappear? Why not reintroduce it, and why not celebrate it? Good ideas don't necessarily need to be discarded for the novelty of something new. If something's good, it is worth repeating." But first, let's take a look at the tags and see what we're working with here. So this is the newer piece of the two, but even so, it is many years old. This is from the Mastodon Fall/Winter 16 collection. Actually one of my favorites, one of the most iconic Rick collections, I'd say. And it is mainline, so you get the script logo at the other runway strip tag here. And then we get our details. We can see it is made in Italy and it's tagged a size extra small. We'll definitely be talking about sizing in a little bit. The colorway is black. It's a pure black, a deep black, which I love. It means it's going to work with tons of different things. And then what is this made out of? Because it is a knit, as you can see. You can see the texture in there. So if we take a look at the fabrication, it is 100% virgin wool. That is a really, really nice fabrication for this. So you can see it's like a light knit, almost like a mesh, not a huge open knit. It's not the thickest fabric either, as you can see down here at the hem. And they do rib this off. So it really is like a jogger hem, just it happens right under the knee as opposed to at the ankles. But it does have this ribbed kind of thing going on right here. Another thing I really, really like here is this huge elasticated waist, or really ribbed waist, so that it grabs you nice and tight, but that's really high. That's like a solid 3 inches or so right there, which is much larger than your usual sweatpant waist. And then crazy long drawstrings, but I also really like the distance between these. Usually on Rick pieces, they're much closer, but on this, the openings for them are much further apart, which gives them this unique distance that's different from most Rick pieces. But then most importantly, as we saw, crazy cropped. That's the point of this video. it is a cropped pair of pants. Like I said, these ones are going to fall just above the knee, and it's also a drop crotch. Cropped drop crotch. It's not a cropped crotch, okay? That'd be very different. That's a thing that's, big for the chosen people and pretty big in America, but it's not done so much in most of Europe, if you get what I mean. No, drop crotch, huge, huge, long rise here. That's the rise. That's got to be like 3 feet of rise. It's an absurd level of drop crotch. It's almost like an athletic pair of leggings or something. When you look at this, the shape of it, it's like a pair of yoga pants or something, but with the crop and with the drop crotch, the poopy pants going on right there. And Rick does tend to leave things pretty plain. It's really about the cuts, as is the case with these cropped pieces. So Rick had to say, I am more interested in cut and sculpture than decorative surface. If expansive clothes are possible, perhaps expansive thought is possible. So think about that when you look at Rick clothing. The lack of the decorative surface is something that carries throughout all of his work. So these right here, these are our cropped knit, our knit Harrington, and now we're going over to our hemp daddy, okay? So if our joggers were a knit, these are really more of a weave. It's a similar type of treatment, but almost like done in a similar way to like a blazer or some tailoring or something, which makes sense because I think these are most fittingly called a pair of dress pants right here. There really is something to the gendering of these pieces as well, and the fact that a cropped pant is not the most stereotypically masculine thing. So here's what Rick says. He said, that's my DNA, that gender fluidity, but with a vitality, swagger, that primal male swagger mixed with makeup and heels, and with menace, with aggression. That recipe is kind of my perception of masculinity in a way, my personal perception. But again, let's look at the tags first. So this one being an earlier piece and being a dress piece, it doesn't have the runway strips at the back here that you'd see on other pieces or newer Rick pieces. Instead, you see what he did on some of his earlier tailoring. And that is this embroidered logo right here in the waistband. There it is right there. Sometimes he would sew in the collection name as well, but in this case, it is just the logo. And to the best of my ability, I believe this is from the Fall 2010 collection. The tags look very similar, also made in Italy. This one's tagged a 48, which would be like a men's medium. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll talk about sizing. The color is just listed as gray. But now let's look at the fabrication because this one's pretty nuts. So right here we can see it is 50%, they call it true hemp, whatever they mean by that. I guess it's not fake hemp, okay? 40% new wool, so virgin wool, and then that last little bit, the 7% is cotton. So a crazy fabrication here. The hemp is not something you see every day, and there's also a lot of silk in the lining as well, which is so cool. All right, now let's take a closer look here. This is so sick. So first, the fabrication. Like I said, it's that kind of like woven pinpoint blazer type of fabrication, but it has this naturalness from the hemp, kind of similar to a linen. So it gives it this great, great organic feel. And Rick has always had an earthy vibe to him, so I think this meshes really well with his general style. It's like a dress pants kind of flap closure here with button closure underneath. And then you can see they've done the drop crotch quite differently here. So on the knit joggers, it was just like the knit went further down here at the crotch. But here this is more of a classic drop crotch type of style or harem pants where they sew in this triangle of fabric at the crotch to get that additional drop. And it gives it a much more, I don't know, striking and obvious drop crotch, especially when you see it from the back in a second. So why does Rick do specifically these cropped cuts over and over again, but change them? They've morphed through time in very clear ways, and I thought this quote was really interesting. He said, "When I started, it was a very languid, drippy silhouette. As I learned how to execute things more precisely, it started engorging." And you can see that in these pieces. The early hemp one, it really does feel drippy. It's not a word I ever would have come up with myself, but it's so interesting that he says that. Whereas the knit short joggers things, right, they have a much more considered cut, much more sculptural, architectural in a way. And then moving down, you get the crop at the ankles here. So these are a crop pair of pants, but if I bring out the joggers, you can see that these are going to end very, very high towards the knee, whereas these are just going to show a little bit of ankle, I would say. And I told you that the drop crotch would be more obvious from the back, so let's see here. There we go. Remember when drop crotches first hit the scene and everyone called them like diaper pants or whatever? This is exactly what they were referring to, because that is intense right there. And it's actually a really cool style. You've got basically an extra panel sewn in right here that's widening the back in a really cool way. A lot of times with Rick stuff, you'll see flat pockets for the back, but these, it's a much more classic dress style with these dual buttoned back pockets. So I feel like this one is really the most interesting from the back. You can really see the drop crotch, the extra space in there, and also the crop is more obvious from the back as well. You don't usually see pieces that are more interesting from the back than the front, so it's always cool when you get a piece like that here. And finally, I think it's really, really interesting the way that Rick approaches other brands. Like, what is Rick a fan of? And he said this: I don't really go to shows when I come to New York, but the ones that I would have gone to, I would have gone to see The Row. They've really maintained a consistently pure aesthetic that I'm always going to look at. And I find that so interesting. He's not looking at like the dark wear, the avant-garde, the weird, right? The really crazy out there underground stuff. When he looks at other brands and who he admires the most, he's looking at brands like The Row. And when you look at that stuff, it's really, really clean, really well made, really nice and structural. And you can work it into an everyday kind of wardrobe. And I think that's something that he admires. So Daddy Rick, he loves a crop. I don't know if he's got a thing for bare legs or a foot fetish. He just wants to start working he wants less strain getting to the feet. You know what I mean? You can just get right to the shoes, pull them off. I don't know. Maybe he's a freak. He's probably a freak. If you've ever seen an interview or seen who he puts in his runway shows or whatever, he's almost definitely a freak, okay? And it's kind of obvious from his clothing and his designs, but I think it's really interesting. There's no one else that does it quite like him. All right, so those are the two pieces, both very different, but very similar at the same time. Like, the aesthetic is different. One's more streetwear, one's more dressy, but they're both cropped, both drop crotch, both have that classic Rick Owens vibe. But next, we've got to try these on, but we can't just try them on. That would just be putting on pants and nothing else. We need other clothes to build looks around. So let's figure out what else we're gonna wear with these. All right, first let's check out these joggers. And for this, I'm going to put together kind of like an opium-ish street look. So first of all, the top we're going to use is this ribbed long sleeve from Enfant Riche de Prime. And this is one of my favorites to pair with Rick stuff because the fit, the fabrication, and the neckline all work really great with Rick stuff. And then for outerwear, we have this zip-up hoodie from Faith Connection, which just has these crazy like glass stars all over it and rhinestones and stuff. It just works so well on camera and even in person, and it's got a great oversized fit. And then finally, I think the most important piece of this fit are these toothy boots, sock boots, kind of like a leather blend here. And what these are gonna do is they're gonna create a kind of unbroken leg for the joggers to fall on top of, so it should be a really nice integrated kind of fit. So let's see what happens. So I feel like for the average fashion connoisseur, when they think of Rick Owens, they think of something like this. Like, this is the Rick Owens that is most likely to show up on your For You page or, you know, Explore page on Instagram or whatever. You know, this is the kind of thing, this slightly sporty, athletic, dark, avant-garde type of fit, type of style. It's very dark, a little bit out there, but also quite streetwear, which makes it accessible, and I think that's why the more streetwear, dark shadow, diffusion line type of Rick stuff is the stuff you tend to see out there the most. So these shorts, they do have a very athletic feel, like I compared them to yoga shorts or joggers or something earlier in the video. And I think that holds true here, which is why I've tried to elevate them. When you combine them with these sock boots that are knee-high, you get this kind of unbroken line down the bottoms that I think works really well together. And then that is a little bit more form-fitting. So then when you open it up with this huge bedazzled hoodie right here, I think it adds a nice element. For Rick, perhaps he would see these as surface decorations because they literally are decorations on the surface of this piece. But I think it adds a little something just because, I'm not the type of person that wears all Rick all the time. I like to mix it up, and this is the kind of way I like to mix it up. Now, as to these bottoms specifically, we saw they were tagged a size extra small, and I think that about plays out. I think they could fit a bit bigger. Like, I'm more of a size small, and these fit me very, very well. And I really do like that tall, ribbed, elasticated waist that we looked at earlier. I think that's a really nice call. My biggest thing that I'll call out that I hate about these, I've called it out for other brands in the past, so it's only fair that I call out Rick for it here, is that there are no pockets. And that's like a real miss because Rick has spoken very, very harshly in the past about how important big pockets are to him. He wants to be able to carry books in the pockets of his pieces. So these completely lacking pockets entirely is really a big miss for me and would make me shy away from actually wearing these out in the world because I like pockets. But I understand that for probably the structure that he was going for here, they didn't really help, but I would prefer them. And finally, the virgin wool knit fabrication here. I mentioned it's thin, it's very, very soft, it's almost mesh-like, and that feels fantastic. I think they are quite likely very susceptible to pulls. I can just feel that, like I have cats, and that scares me here. So definitely keep that in mind. But if you're down for a little danger in your life, the feel of these is like unbeatable. All right, and for the hemp like dress pants, of course, we're going to be going for a dressier, slightly more tailored look. But for our top here, we are going to go more casual, and we're actually going to do this like silky Babel shirt from Rick Owens. Great neckline, great fabrication, great earthy color that should go really well with these pants. And it's also got a really interesting hem here with this kind of like knot that happens naturally right there. Really cool draping. For outerwear, we actually have a piece from Balenciaga. This is a women's wear piece, a very strong shouldered double-breasted blazer in a sort of like green subtle plaid colorway. This jacket works so well with so many things, and again, I think the colors are going to play together well here, while also providing a nice bit of shape to the entire look. And finally, kind of taking inspiration from Rick Owens' Kiss boots, we have these Enfant Riche Déprimé zip-up stomper boots with this broken kind of midsole here, but super chunky, super high, front zip, kind of guidi, kind of Rick Owens Kiss boots, but I think they're going to work really well with the cropped fit of the pants. So let's check this one out. Now this one is so interesting. I do really like this fit. I like the direction it's going in. And you can tell it feels like older Rick. He used to be a bit more refined, maybe a little bit more unsure of himself and how he could execute. I think if you were to ask him, he would probably admit to that. But I like the earthy tones that we had going on, and I like playing into that with this fit. And it almost gives me like high fashion professorial vibes, like I feel like I should be grading theses right now. But the fabrication on these is so sick. We saw it is primarily hemp. It has a kind of linen-y feel, which is one of my favorite fabrications, so having that in dress pants is fantastic. The crop is very, very refined. It hasn't gotten too out of hand at this point in Rick's career. He's more, working it into a bit more accessible pieces, and you can see that drippiness that he talks about, the way it hangs down, especially from the back. I also like playing into that drippiness with the top here, the shirt that's kind of pouring out over the sides. I'm just doing a front tuck here, and that is very intentional to play into that kind of drooping that we see going on here. But this is the kind of fit that you could wear out into the world. You could wear it to a nice lunch or dinner. You could even wear it in probably quite a few office situations. So I honestly think, at least for a more, I don't know, a slightly aged up or more professional person, this is actually a more realistic look than the first one. The last thing worth noting here is that you saw these were tagged a size 48, which usually translates to like a men's medium, but these fit tight. They do have a pretty high rise, so you can get away with a sort of tighter waist, but I would really liken these more to like a men's size 46 or a size small or like 30 waist, rather than I usually would say a 48 would be like a US men's 32. So just keep that in mind. If you're going for the older Rick pants, they might fit a bit tight. All right, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed seeing some leg. Yes, scandalous. Victorian era scandals going on here on the Low Luxury channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take a look at the other video on screen here. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.